Hello, everybody. Welcome to Into the Score. My name is Avishai Darash. I'm your host for this podcast. In Into the Score, I get a chance to sit with very interesting people, talk to them about their time in the industry of music, sometimes about politics, about entrepreneurship, and everything that comes in between. And today, I have the opportunity to sit with Noam Ophir. Hi, Noam.
Hey.
Also known as Soul Supreme.
Yeah. More known as Soul Supreme, I would say.
Yeah, exactly. As a stage name, basically, you can say it, right? Why Soul Supreme?
It's been a DJ name before I've even been producing or making music. And basically, I really like soulful everything. Food, music, whatever. So, like, for me, that's the essence of everything. No matter the style you do or whatever you do, like, that's what I feel in art, I would say. So for me, that's the most supreme thing you can do with your art, is to be soulful. But that's been like, I don't know, 15, 16 years now.
So actually, people don't know it, but we know each other since high school.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, we know each other from the Yellow Submarine. We know each other like from that time of...
Of old times.
I think it's like 21, 22 years. But we found our paths crossing here again in Amsterdam. Yeah. Which is very interesting because the world is a big place. There are a lot of other places to go to. And we touched base. And how long have you been here already?
10 years now.
10 years, yeah. So we touched base, if that's the case, like after me being here for 4 years. And then you ended up in Amsterdam. What brought you here?
It's a good question. I'm not sure I have an answer. Because I was starting to produce 2 years before that in Tel Aviv. And I didn't play keys back then for like 10 years at least. I was really collecting records, DJing, and starting to produce. And I already felt after 2 years in Tel Aviv, the city is too small. I didn't feel inspired. And I definitely did not feel I have the circle around me, the scene that really gets me in a inspired and motivated to get better. I felt I needed a change, to go to somewhere where the music is, I'm not going to say better, but at least the music I like actually exists in a place where it did not really exist in Tel Aviv. And I was also throwing parties, but again, in 2 years, you already get to bring the DJs you like, and to be in like to make the best parties. There's no more room for growth, and I need to be uncomfortable, and I need to be motivated, and I just did not feel that way in Tel Aviv. Amsterdam, I've never been here before moving here. I just pack up my bag. My wife now, then my girlfriend, loved Amsterdam, and people speak here English. So we just packed our bags and arrived. Like, it was really the dumbest thing you can do, but in so many ways.
But was it like a spontaneous decision, or was it something that you like planned for? Or
we talked about it for, I would say, 6-7 months. We just wanted to change. I always saw myself living abroad. I actually thought about New York, but just life didn't work that way. And I knew a few DJs here, and I play with them. They told me, yeah, man, like the level here in what you do is not that high. You could really get get some gigs and stuff, which was not true. But, I just didn't think so much. And then maybe that's a good thing about your 20s. You don't think so much. You just have fun and do shit and deal with the consequences later.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of consequences. Like, you don't move to a place without a plan or money. I can tell you now. But it was a really good experience in hindsight.
What were the consequences of moving to a place without?
I was literally poor for 5 or 6 years. Like, had no money. And, like I was told by people here, you'd get the gigs in a second. But once, I don't know if the same in your scene, but in Amsterdam, the DJing scene, it's so competitive, and it's not a merit-based competition. People who have the gigs keep it to themselves and their friends, and it's really, as an outsider, it's almost in the beginning impossible to get ahead, especially if you don't do all the things you're supposed to do to get ahead. Right. So, but again, I will never. I don't regret it, and I will do exactly the same if I could, because these experiences led me to what I do today. But I was really, like, I'm talking about, have no money, like barely money to eat, kind of, for years and years and years, and had to work full-time a job you don't like just to support making music afterwards. So you work 8 hours, you go home, you make music for 6-8 hours. And you do that for years until you can live off music. So that was kind of my life for 5 or 6 years.
But this is an inspiring story, actually. Like, would you say...
In hindsight, it's very inspiring.
In hindsight, everything is 2020, you know?
Yeah. But and I don't complain, It was good years and it was exciting. But still, you want to do music full time. You don't want to work a shitty job and then do it afterward.
What would you do different?
Nothing, because I would not make the music I make today if I would not go through. Like I thought I would be more full-time DJ, then maybe produce some hip hop on the side, but not having DJ gigs and really having time to focus on production, and then through production, reconnecting with my passion to actually play music, doing a sound engineering degree. Like if everything would go according to my plan, none of this would happen, you know? So that's kind of, it's a cliche, but some things are supposed to be hard, you know, difficult for you to find what you need to do.
Yeah, but that's the thing, that if everything would go according to our plan, we would live in Kingdom Noam, and it will just be like,
I'd still be 20.
I want this.
Exactly.
I want this, and I want to get this.
But that's why I moved, because you need to be uncomfortable. Like I believe, at least for myself, you need to be uncomfortable to become better. Like if everything is easy, and I know people who are like child prodigies, from, you know, they're good from the age of 5. I mean, I cannot judge because I did not have their journey, but I connect more to stories of people who had hardships and have to find their way and develop and not stay the same from a young age. You know, that's kind of my journey.
Yeah, because you started also from the piano, basically, right? We know each other from that.
Yeah, I was,
place.
but I was not as good as you are back then. You were already super advanced. I played as a kid, and then during high school, I mean, I love jazz and I love funk and I love soul, so I tried to get serious, but for really a short amount of time. And then at the same time, I was doing graffiti. I was breakdancing. I did too many things. You know, I could not get focused on music. So only later I could reconnect. And you kept on with piano.
Yeah. I kept on to the point that I hate it. No, I'm kidding. No, but and do you feel that, like, after all these, like, let's say, struggles that you had, like you said something that it affected your music in that sense. How did it affect your music? Can you actually quantify it?
Well, it's not necessarily I'm not one of those people who, like, I mean, I've done projects like that, but I don't feel like in every piece I write there's my struggles or everything, but it's more like me not getting DJ gigs meant I had a lot more time to actually learn how to produce. And then I was not happy with the sound, so I had the time to do on the audio engineering degree. And then I felt like I want to play, so I had the time to actually sit every day 6-7 hours and practice and get better. And again, if I would keep the same life I had before, doing 4, 5, 8, 10 DJ gigs a month, I would not have the time to really get better. And I would, even if I had the motivation, I just wouldn't have the time, and other things would have happened.
Yeah.
But this combination of things led me to make the music I make today. Like literal combination, not emotional.
You know, it's interesting to say, because I had, like, the first guest that I had here was Joran Flom. He's a very accomplished drummer here. And we were just talking about, like, how it goes in, you know, in waves, how everything is happening in waves. Like, he's gigging all the time and he's playing everywhere, but he was talking also about periods where he wasn't playing, and then it's time for him to actually practice. You know, like, the same, I can take it from my story in the sense of when I was working with the orchestra, I was either arranging or I was managing. That's what I was doing. But I wasn't really practicing piano. It was just like pure maintenance, like just quickly get the thing together. And I felt like a fraud. You know? Yeah, I felt like a fraud. I hated it. I felt like the stuff that brought me to the level that I am is being taken from me, you know? It was also a choice of mine. I'm not a victim of that. I chose consciously to go down that path. But also I chose consciously to leave it. And I wonder for myself, because we were talking on the phone quickly, like recently before booking this, that I was like, hey, who wrote the arrangements and who did? And you were like, man, a lot of stuff happened. You know, a lot of water went under the bridge and I'm doing everything by myself. And is it a necessity that you found yourself needing to develop all these things, or is it like a natural evolution that happened?
It is natural, but it's a result of my character. I have a very sometimes I have a very vivid vision of how I want things to sound, and I just found that by doing it myself, I have much more control. Now, it does not mean if I go in the studio, I tell everybody how to play everything, but I hear things in my head, like. So that's, I think, also a plus of me getting into production and music at an older age, like 29, 30. So I already had a very clear understanding of what music I like, what I like about music, and how I hear things. But also, it's like it's a necessity. I do everything almost by myself. So it means I don't have a label or a subsidy throwing 30,000 at me. So I have one day at the studio with the strings, and I need to make it count. I don't have money to pay an arranger, but also I'm curious. You know, that's the thing. Why I like music is I'm curious. I hear something I like, then I go and learn it. You know, it's I never felt like I don't feel like it's work to transcribe all day and learn things. Like that's my passion.
Yeah. And before we started this, you said like I'm a very much do-it-yourself DIY person. You want to tell me more about it? Because we were talking about a little bit about labels. We're going to get to that story, but
there's a lot of stories about labels. Some are good, but I will say this, and it's something. So I was releasing a little bit with a label 2018, 19, very kind of modern boogie, kind of very different sound than what I do today. And it went well, but then I was trying to make longer, more substantial, I wouldn't say artistic, but a bit more sounding like myself, not really music. And I was looking for labels, and a good friend of mine, Con, who's a great producer, he told me, the thing is, you're asking other people to bet on you, but you're not willing to bet on yourself. And I told him, listen, I have no experience in this. I've never released records. I have no money to invest. Told me it doesn't matter. You want somebody else to do it, you first need to do it yourself. Why do you expect others to help you when you're not helping yourself? Now, it's not that it's the only way to go, but for me, it was like, okay, you know what? Let's take this as a challenge. I can do it myself. You know, I believe in my music. I don't know the other stuff. The other stuff I learn. You know, I have the patience. And it has a lot of pros. It has some cons as well. For me, it worked out great, personally. But I'm not sure it will work for everybody the same, but I can talk about it forever. You learn so much by doing it yourself. Really, a lot.
Talk about it. Yeah, I mean, because that's the thing, is that paradigms are changing right now. It's just so quickly changing. You know, since the revolution of streaming, since the revolution of social media, gatekeepers are disappearing.
Although others are born while we speak.
Of course, we still need it as humans. It's like we're almost like materializing gatekeepers for ourselves, because then we'll be savages. But the question is, if you could tell about it, because people are listening to it and, oh no, I need to get a label. No, I need to have a manager. I need to have this. I need to have that. And it's like misconceptions sometimes that are actually standing in the way of people creating stuff.
So it's a multi-layered questions, but I'll start this. You need to ask yourself as a musician, can you actually do it? Do you have the personality to do it? Can you read an accounting sheet? Do you know how to read a distribution contract? You know, do you know which platforms are not working for your kind of music? So you have to ask yourself if you know, and B, if you have the capability of knowing. But then comes another thing. Do you have the time to do it? I will say why I chose to do it, because it was a challenge. It was a challenge, but I think you learn so much by doing it yourself. First of all, you learn how everything works. You learn from actually recording to how, making contracts musician, how to work with the engineer, find the studio you want, how to, maybe if you don't have money, you learn how to barter, how to, how to do all these kind of things. And then you learn how distribution works, because you have to sign a distribution deal. So you learn how that. So you learn the industry from a very different place that most artists do not know. But then you also know when a label then offers you a contract, you see your friends working with labels and they get this amount of money or they have this amount of control, then you kind of learn, but why is the label getting so much? Why does the artist cannot decide on his artwork? You kind of learn what you give and what you get. On the other hand, I will say doing it yourself. So I sell, I would say, a good amount of records, more than a lot of labels I know. On the other hand, for example, as a non-label, you have way more difficult time to go into festivals, to go into especially written media, kind of legacy media is very difficult yourself. But I think you have a direct line to your audience, which I think is priceless. It's worth more than anything. Like having fans who follow your music and not a label and not a platform, but you as an artist is the most valuable thing. And secondly, then when you want to go and transition and work with the traditional industry, you actually know what it is you're giving away, or what it is they're supplying in returns to ownership of your work, which I don't do, or percentage or anything. You actually know how it works, and I think that's priceless. But like you said, with your story on the orchestra, it takes time. Yeah, time that you cannot do other stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So you're basically, was it a conscious thing to go after that 360 knowledge of everything that is happening around you?
It's my character. I like to know everything. Even if I don't do it later, I like to understand it. And especially I don't like to hire people who I don't know what they do. Like you said, a manager, artists will take a manager, and they have expectations. Sometimes a manager will make them famous or open doors, but it's it doesn't always work this way. You actually need to understand what it is that everybody does, and by doing everything yourself, you learn, one way or another.
Yeah. So take me down that route. You just finished a track.
Okay,
what
so
is the next step?
This has changed over the years, but I'll tell you how I do it kind of now. I usually write a bunch of, like, let's say an album. I write a bunch of tracks, I prepare arrangements, I record everything, and I have kind of a general plan. Then I assemble the musicians who I want for each track. I write the arrangements, I go to the studio, I make deals with everybody, which hopefully makes everybody happy, like in a way that's affordable, but also people get paid nicely. You get all this. Now, I mix it myself because I know how to mix, and I have an audio engineering degree, but I will not recommend it to anyone who's like, that's a very crucial part. You don't need to do it yourself. I do it because I can. Then mastering, and then starts a whole different thing. You need to find a distributor that's good at what you do, but also the format that you like. You need to learn how to approach your audience. And
when you say distributor, you're talking about digital distributor or physical?
I do physical because vinyl is such a huge. It's where I come from. I'm a record collector for I don't know many years, and it's where also I think a lot of my listeners come from. And I also think it's the most sustainable thing as an artist today. It might go in a few years.
Vinyl.
But vinyl for me, for my kind of music, it really sustains me. So I have a good physical. Digital, I don't know as much, but I'm learning as I go along. So, but that's, by the way, that's something I know I'm giving away, because I know some people who work with digital-only distributors or digital labels, and they could get placed with playlists like in a second that I cannot. But I rather focus on the long term, build my audience, and especially the vinyl market is super important for me, so I went that route.
Yeah.
But then with distributor, you have to also learn how to work with them, because a lot of people have distributors. They don't sell the records at the same amount. They don't push every record. You need to build these relationships with stores, with taste makers. It takes time. But I know my weakness is marketing. I hate marketing. I don't do marketing, and that's where I need to improve. But also, you need to learn everything if you want to do it yourself.
Yeah.
Basically.
Why is the thing? But wait, we're not. So you get it to distribution, then you get it also pressed.
So
right?
Then you have to talk to pressing plants, get offers, and build relationship in that sense, and learn what quality you want. Who does the best lacquers for vinyl? Who's the master engineer you want to work with? It's a whole thing. Which special editions are good for your market that your fans will support. There's a lot of small details. What I will say is you don't need to know everything, and you have to be easy on yourself. It's okay to make mistakes and learn as you go along.
Yeah.
But the more curious you are, the more you know.
And you learn by trial and error.
And asking people, like people you know and trust. Like now in this industry, some people want to hold the secrets, but a lot of people are nice and will be honest with you. If you come with that attitude.
Yeah, we were just talking about before. It's like people that swim with their hands to their chest. Stay away from them.
They're
going to drown you with them.
Although, I mean, it's also part of the industry, and a lot of people are like that, but it's better to find people who are more like-minded. And I believe in community, which is weird because I'm an introvert who never leaves the house. But I really believe if we work together as a community, musicians, fans, we can all be in a better place. Like the thing is, I hate it in the Amsterdam DJ scene. The competition does not improve. I think it takes the skill down, and it kind of destroys the relationships. If we help each other, we can all get to a better place. Like
and in which way does it take the skill down and destroy relationships?
Because I think if small people keep the gigs for themselves, they push the level down because there's no competition.
Yeah.
They stop it. And also there's no mix. Like, what's the best thing as an artist you can have is actually work with another artist and maybe get inspired with something you've never thought about, or just get challenged or whatever. But if you and your friends play and you never let anyone else play, how is it going to get better or interesting,
It's interesting that you say that, because I see that type of echo chambering also in my scene.
In jazz, I hear it's even worse. Actually.
Yeah, and it's gatekeepers left and right, and even it's ridiculous because by the time that this will be out, I don't know if I actually scored the nomination, but I'm considered for a Grammy, and I'm like, where are you? Where are you? What is, none of you is considered for a Grammy, and the Metropole Orchestra is considered for a Grammy, and it's so echo chambered that it's almost like this feeling of is he threatening us, or is he against us, or like who is this guy? What is he doing? And I wonder if it has to do with a cultural thing, or does it have to do with the scene thing? Because what you're saying right now, it's echoing in other scenes that I've seen.
I think it's both. It depends on the city and the culture, but I have to say it's also the same. Well, it's in a different way, but across different cities I've seen, and I know people from New York who complain about the same in LA. I think there are way too many artists, not enough money, not enough awards, and everybody thinks that if they'll compete and be competitive, they'll have a better chance of getting it.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of missing the point.
What is the point then?
The point is making good art and making a living as a collective is much better, and working together towards it than actually fighting each other. And that's just, I don't know if it's financially viable, but I really believe that way.
Yeah.
I think it just doesn't work that way when everybody fights all the time. And I think if you look at, so the DJ scene I was part, there was different promoters bringing DJs, and there were a few power players who had more money and especially subsidies, and they kind of did, like I would say, by choice, same events on the same days and brought similar DJs just to kill all the competition. If you look at that scene 10 years later, nobody does anything because the competition is dead. Yeah. And there's only one group, and they're not interesting because they do the same shit for 15 years.
Yeah, because they're not actually being challenged.
No, and they have no also incentive of getting better. But in general, I don't know. I just don't believe that's the right way to make art. Art should come from a place of beauty and emotion, and not from... Competition is good to motivate yourself, but I don't think it's a very long-term good for art.
I think, I don't know if it's competition, to be honest, if I think about it. I think it's famine mentality. It's like scarcity, of like, oh my God, he or she or they are going to take my place. Finally, I position myself in this thing. I'm going to make sure that I just keep that position. Where actually, I saw that a lot in the subsidy world, is that you get locked into a position and then it becomes just maintenance of keeping that position instead of expanding it,
Well, it's true, but I also think, I'm thinking a bigger picture, not subsidies, but art. I have thousands of records. I have a lot of music I like, and none of it is in competition with each other. It only gets this way, especially I can see it in conservatory, where people want to be the best, the most technical, or the most impressive. Yeah. But if you talk about art, about really what art that makes people feel something, it's not like this guy or that guy can do it better. Each artist have the audience they can touch or not. Yeah. And I don't think it's very good to look at it this way, for me,
Yeah, I'm gonna say something. It's like it's actually the first time I'm talking about it in this podcast. Probably it's gonna come back and stuff. But when I was, I think it was when I was around 18, 19. My sister finished her PhD. It was something about molecular biochemistry or whatever, and it's that interesting. And I remember that I went to the Jerusalem University, and she was like, yeah, it's in the library there. You can go and see it. It's like a book, that she wrote. And I went into the library, and I went through like all the books, and I looked at it, and it was like shelves upon shelves of PhD work. And I went to the librarian and asked, like, so who's reading this? And she said, oh, no one is checking out these books. And I was like, you just spend years of your life writing a PhD that gave you, let's say, a doctorate, but what is really the impact that you made for humanity? Now, fast forward like to music, is that I found myself going to like a Vorspielabend, of students like masters or PhD. And it's music that will never succeed commercially because it's completely removed from the audience. It's completely removed from what really the scene. I'm not talking about competition. I'm not talking about like he got this gig or she got this gig. It's about the audience.
Yeah.
What does the audience want? And it's so removed, but there is still like resources being directed to that place that make it plausible for it to kind of continue breathing like this like beast that is like, just keep on feeding it, And then what happens is, like I said before, the echo chambering of it. And then there is complete disconnect from the audience. Because what you're talking about is that you're making a direct connection to your audience. So your art actually reflects a very lively and very viable aspect of the human experience. And that's why it resonates with people. Right?
The hand soul supreme. Yeah, because that's what I love, you know?
Yeah. So when did you realize that you're doing this?
Oh man, I think I have a very weird character. I kind of always know, even if I don't, but I think I know what I want, you know? So I never, you know, it's just it's something I can feel. I just, so I'll give two things. A, I agree with you with a lot of music, and especially subsidized and academic music, and these people who do very intellectual things, who will not have a crowd ever. On the one hand, I think it's, especially when they get government money, it should be directed to people that actually make music that touches people. On the other hand, as a record collector, I can tell you a lot of records were undiscovered and even, I would say, unimportant musically for 40 years until they got suddenly, you know, recently a good example is, I mean, I wouldn't say non-important, but Artur Verukai, who performed it at the Concertgebouw. I mean, he was very unknown for many, many years. Or even if you look at jazz, Sanra was known a little bit back in the day. But now he's like, if you actually ask a random music lover, especially if they come from hip-hop, they would know Sanra before they would probably know McCoy Tyner. Because you never know how art, you know, circles. But but some stuff that is self-indulgent. Why I don't really connect to a lot of free music, because for me a lot of it is self-indulgent. It's not aimed at the crowds, although it's sometimes way more subsidized than music that is. So I get what you're saying, but I also say you never know what will impact people in 50 years.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But for myself, I do need my music to be listened by humans and listen to it and enjoy it too. You know, it's not an academic or intellectual exercise.
Yeah, it's like you need reciprocation.
I mean, I don't have to like it, but I want people to feel something.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to invent the wheel either.
So here we are. I have to ask you about the drama, man.
I wouldn't say drama, but
I mean, I can tell you how it seemed like from the outside,
Tell me.
because it's been on 5 years, right? Yeah. And I listened to the record that you brought out, which I really liked. I loved it. I love what you're doing in general, really. And I think you also really found like your sound, you know, because I know you from the days that we were like transcribing like Brad Mehldau and stuff.
I was never transcribing Brad Mehldau.
But like we were talking about it and stuff, you know.
I just discovered
or like Wynton Kelly.
Wynton for sure.
Red Garland and stuff. And then seeing like you taking really like this, you know, your own voice in it. And I remember when it just came out, I was like, yo, what is happening, you know? And then when I saw a couple of weeks ago again that it's still like running, I was like, motherfuckers, what is happening there?
It's the stupidest story, to be honest, if you think about it in so many ways. But basically, this guy from Norway, Fred Fades, I don't want to speak personally about him, but I will just say I thought he was my friend. He asked me to collaborate with him. He sent me 4-bar loops that are really minimal. I could, if I had them, I'll play it. You wouldn't legally. I would not say, if you look at a musicologist, would not consider it something copyrightable because it's so general. It has no melodies, it barely any harmony. It's just 4-bar loop. I made songs out of it. It was supposed to be a collaboration. It's all documented. The sessions are documented. The conversations are documented. He literally released it without, my name was just as a session player. I wrote the music. I mean, I produced it. He barely did anything except cutting and pasting my stuff and adding a little bit on top. But anyways, so actually in the beginning, he tried to kind of just not talk about it, and time went well. But one of the songs did very well. I'm now kind of taking 5 years of a lot of stuff and putting it in a
we have time, huh?
Yeah, but trust me. Like even just the documents file folder for the Court of Appeals with 1,000 pages. I'm talking about conversations, contracts, whatever. It's really endless.
1,000 pages.
Expert opinions, articles. It's so much information.
Wow, dude.
And I've read everything.
Rabbit hole, man.
It is. But a sad one. But so in the beginning, he was like, "Oh, you're right. You know, you produced it, and I told him, how do you want to split it?" I told him, "Listen, I don't want to make more than anyone else. Let's split it equally." He brought in his friend was credited for the work, although he didn't do anything. But I said, "Okay, he's whatever you did, he was a part of it. Let's split it thirds." He was like, "Sure." I let the money guy, so I called him, speak to you from the label and we'll sell up. Then I get an email from that guy and he offers me like 5% of no ownership, barely. Like, I think in the beginning he didn't even acknowledge any copyright should be given. 5%, he said, and you're lucky because usually people will get 2% for that. So anyways, and then very weird conversations. He was very this is just really not in good faith, just really bad energy. And at some point, he even lied to a prominent Amsterdam booker who lied to someone else to get my phone number, called me, tried to threaten me on the phone. Like this Norwegian nerd, I mean, it's just so stupid. But then they got probably, in my opinion, the worst lawyer in the world for these kind of things, who instead of solving this conflict amicably, I will tell my opinion about him as much as I can. Hopefully my lawyers won't be mad. And really gave them the worst advice possible. Like, don't give him anything. The label should own everything. Just don't solve it no matter what. In the beginning, all they had to do is pay me royalties, which were nothing, 1,500 euros back then, I think. And just acknowledge, edit my credits, and acknowledge my ownership. That's it. But it did not go. He lied. He did not answer to emails. It was just 10 months of just not doing anything. And meanwhile, the song is over almost 4 million plays. And, they're making money to pay their lawyers to them. I need just to get acknowledged of my work. I told them, if you don't do anything, I'm gonna ask Spotify to take it down. Spotify did take it down, but now we know that if you have more than 3 copyrighted songs that are taken down of your album, Spotify automatically punishes you and take the entire album. So now they allege I asked Spotify to take their album down, which I didn't. But anyways, it ended up lawyers in Norway. So that was the first mistake. I thought if I can sue them in the Netherlands, here we have very good laws that protect artists. But because they're not part of the EU and the crime was outside of the EU in Norway, you could not sue them here and you could not do anything. So I had to go to Norway. If you ask me, that's one of the biggest mistakes I ever made, going to Norway. Their legal system is opposite of anything that's norm in the US, UK, or the NL. And I've shown it to experts here, really experts, professors. They're like, no, everybody looks, it makes no sense. It makes no sense. So the first court, I'm just going to sum it. They lied in court, and they were also had no problem bringing this expert who was, according to him, a tour manager for Metallica in '96. But he was the expert in front of the court, saying that I should not own and I'm a session musician and so forth. They won the first round. Court of Appeals, I won producer rights. And then they appealed it to the Supreme Court. And this I'm talking about it's like years and years. But the Supreme Court, the legal expert thought I'm about to win, but they made something that really changed the course. They asked all the major labels, they have an organization called IFPI, and they asked this organization, another organization that represents the indie labels, to join them. Now, these organizations are filthy rich. They have the best lawyers, unstoppable. And also when they come in front of the court, look at me, I'm a private person. They come with the biggest companies in the music. That changed everything, even though they lied. And even this I got from insider information. Even IFPI, the organization who sued me with that label, in their debriefing for their own labels, they had a debriefing meeting. I have someone who was there shared this with me. They even said they did not believe how biased the court was against me. And these are people who are part of this organization, told me, because they could not believe it. The other organization, Phono, supposed to represent indie labels. The head knew they lied. People leaked to me documents. I have never asked for it, but people just felt it was so wrong. In conversation with other organizations in Europe, he acknowledged he lied. Like they lied to him about it, and he submitted documents to court that are not. They said I'm a bass player. I don't even know how to play bass.
Wow.
I'm just a bass player on the track. That's what the official Supreme Court documents say. That's what they testified to court. The guy knew it, and he did not withdraw his name. He just did not appear at court. But his organization was represented by the lawyer, was an ex-high judge in Norway, and he is in front of the Supreme Court. I had no shot.
Wow,
really no
this
shot.
Is like perjury. This is like
in the
tampering evidence.
Not only that, there's so many things. And I had the best one. I would say the top 3 all-time musicologists testify in my defense. Is a guy who did Marvin Gaye cases, Led Zeppelin cases. He's the head expert for IFPI International, and he said he was never disrespected as he was in front of the Norwegian court. It's really weird. I had the head of the EU Like the European has a songwriter and a composer organization. The president testified on my behalf. They just ignored it, you know. And they had no expert who's a musicologist. They had this tour manager, and he was referenced in the verdict 6 times. My 2 experts who are world renowned, 0.
Wow.
I'm telling you. So you feel like you're really against a wall. That no matter and all the experts in the world, they all tell you you're right, but it just doesn't matter because this is not the EU. This is not the US. They have different laws, and I'm an outsider. I just have no say.
And was there, I mean, maybe it's a rhetorical question, but was there a moment that you were just like, you know, fuck this, let's just...
Well, in hindsight,
let's settle, you know?
I offered them... Okay, I'll give you another weird story. I'm the only one who documented the settlement offer. We had to do court mediations. Now, these are things the court asks you to mediate before and have a decision. Each party has the ability to document their best offer. Then the judge can reference it. Now, I'm the only one who ever documented an offer. In the court, their own lawyer got confused, and he thought the offer that was documented in the court information was theirs. And he went on 5 minutes talking about how this offer is fair, and the judge agreed, and why wouldn't I take it? And then we told the judge, listen, this is my offer. And their lawyer called me a liar. But then we showed from the mediator, the judge, an email that shows this is my offer. And so even in front of the court, now according to Norwegian legal, whatever procedures, if the judge and the parties agree that there's an offer that was fair that was not taken, the other party is at fault. Not in my case. And he referenced the same thing because he got confused again in the second court. It's really, the second mediation, I was called to go to Oslo, so I have to fly with my Dutch lawyer, 2 Norwegian lawyers that represent me in Norway, and I have to fly here, take a hotel. The guy does not show up. You know, I waste so much money. I have to pay everybody. The guy doesn't show up to mediation. It's really the worst people I've ever dealt. Now I have to say,
man, this is like third world country.
It's crazy because they're one of the richest countries also, but they're very different. Now I will tell you another weird story about this, and that's the only professional music industry magazine in Norway did a story after the verdict. Now at first I negotiated. I told them I'm not doing an interview unless you show me what the other party is actually saying. They had the judge lawyer from IFPI, and they had the lawyer from the other party submit all the evidence. Me and the lawyer went argument by argument and show how they lie about EU law, how they lie about famous cases, how about the facts of the case. We just showed the article, really dissected every lie they've produced, and the article was approved. It was scheduled to go. The morning it was supposed to be released, I get an email. The editor did not provide a reason, but the article was pulled. I'm telling you, you're fighting. And then I learned, these are it's way bigger than me. But
this is like top level corruption, man.
And you know what? I talked to music journalists or whatever, and I'm not famous. They don't care. That's really the story. Luckily, the community cares. And that's something we can discuss because I think... So one thing I did say in an article was never produced. They won something. They did get, if I remember correctly, negligent, that they did not credit me, did not enroll me correctly with all the organization and stuff. But at the end of the day, what did they win? I mean, they don't have the rights to the song. They have the master rights, but they don't have the artist. They don't have the neighboring rights. They don't have the copyrights. I have those. They have no license to release the song. So they don't win the music. But also, they endured crazy legal fees. And also, the community, I've been vocal about it. Everybody knows. And nobody wants to work with people like that. Nobody wants to support people like that. So from what I've been told, outside of Norway, nobody wants to support them anymore. Yeah. So was it worth it, you know?
Yeah, I'm trying to understand, what was the end goal of what did they actually want?
Well, I think this is a combination. The money guy, he testified in court. He does not believe artists should own anything. He thinks the label should get everything, and artists should be thankful to be released.
That's insane.
It's the worst kind of person to be in the music industry, but unfortunately, there are quite a lot of those.
That is just some vulture mentality.
I think it's him and the guy who was exposed, I think it's the ego. The lawyer is just a terrible guy who's, in my opinion, just a terrible, really, I'll give an anecdote about him. He is, he loves music. I'm not going to give too many information, but he loves music. And I took him in a conversation after the second court and I told him, you collect music. You collect soul music particularly. Most of these musicians you love so much, you make your life better. They really, you collect this music, you go to these events, you love it. It brings you joy. Most of these artists were scammed by labels and are died poor without anything, without ownership of music. I told him, don't you feel inside that it's also wrong for your client, business-wise, but don't you feel morally you're doing something that's against everything that makes you joy in life? He told me, I get paid, this is what I get paid to do. Like, I think, oh man, you don't even deserve to listen to this music.
Wow.
It's really just a shame. But, you know, that's my stubbornness. Will I go to Norway again? No. But do I regret it? Also no, because I stood up for what's right.
Yeah,
you know?
and you learned a lot, huh?
Yeah, I missed an opportunity to buy a house as well, but I learned a lot. But it is what it is, you know. I also don't believe in crying about what happened.
Yeah.
But I do think it's important that the scene, musicians, producers, labels, fans really don't let people pass with this kind of behavior, because this really like, how many musicians do you know that maybe had a good few records but have no rights, and at an older age have no pension, have no really a way to sustain?
Too many. Alan Holdsworth, great example, one of the greatest guitar players that ever lived. Changed the course of guitar playing to a certain extent. He died, and his family had to do a GoFundMe just to be able to bury him.
I mean, Lucky Thompson, Hank Mobley died homeless.
Who?
Hank Mobley,
yeah.
Lucky
Hank
Thompson.
Mobley.
And these people now, it's funny, I saw this now, Bruno did a whole anniversary, like reissuing a millionth time of his records. Like, yeah, you were not there when he died homeless, you know?
And that is what is so predatory in our business also, is, I can't remember when it was, but that the most sold vinyl was like the reissue of some tracks of Coltrane, you know? And I was like, he is dead. Who is enjoying this? Like, what, his estate is enjoying this?
The best case scenario would be his family.
Yeah.
In reality, many times it's not.
That's what I mean. So it's like, a great example of this also, talking about rights. Jay-Z used a sample from an Arabic singer. Super
famous song.
I can't remember now the name of it. Abdul Halim, I can't remember his name. And he made millions from this.
100%.
And the nephew went to the Supreme Court in the States to fight that. But because the management of Abdul Halim did not take care of this, they were just like, we cannot help you.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times, this is what I learned in the legal system.
Yeah.
I will say, from what I know in the Netherlands, it's better. But even still, I mean, I think, and the way it's so easy for predatory people to get this kind of hold of an artist, most artists I know took many years until they had a career.
Yeah.
And by the time they're so desperate to get just the chance that they'll sign anything. They don't want it, but even if they get it and they get some success, they, like you said, it's maintaining the position. They don't want to risk it. It's something I learned because I've met other people who are wrong by the same label quite a lot, by the people in the label personally, but also other labels. And I ask everyone, why don't you speak up? And everybody, a lot of people just, I don't want to destroy my relationships. You know?
Yeah.
I'm thinking, is it worth defending these people and letting them continue? Because that's why these people can continue doing it for so many years, because nobody speaks up.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody speaks up until it gets to a boiling point, and it gets to a moment where you're like, I'm either going to lose my sanity or I'm going to lose my relationship. So what is better or worse?
But
and
why would you lose your relationship? I think it's a weird fear. I think if you're fighting for musicians' rights, musicians and label who will stop working with you are labels and musicians you should not be working with.
Yeah.
If they don't care for your well-being.
Because you place boundaries,
yeah.
if you really think about it. Like basically what happened there, if I like really sum up your story, is like, hey, I had expectations. There was trust also from the beginning. And correct me if I'm wrong here, you came also from a sorry. You came from a naive and loving place also. You were like, hey, I just want to make music.
And this guy's my friend.
Exactly. Loyalty. We were just talking about it with Pablo last the podcast before you. And he was your friend. he was someone that you wanted to create with. You saw a sustainable path.
I would
be.
just not expect anyone to do that, and I think that was my
Yeah.
mistake. You
Yeah.
expect people to behave like you, and then with experience you learn. It's
Yeah.
not the case with a lot of people. But I still think you have to have that kind of naivety if you want to create with people, and if you want to be sane as an artist. Because if you distrust everyone and anyone,
You can't do shit.
no, and also
No.
it's not healthy. I think I just had the shitstorm
Yeah.
gathering above me with this story, but I do think most 99 out of 100 people will not act the way that this guy or the label
Yeah.
have.
No, it's a very peculiar situation.
It is.
It's very peculiar. It's not something I never heard of it. And I mean, now when you lay it out like this, it's also appalling that there is no recognition of also the abuse that they.
No, they're the victim. If you listen to what they,
Yeah.
I wish again, first world country, but not first world legal system. In Norway, they don't record or write down the positions of people testifying. I wish I could show it because they're the
Wow.
victim. Even in front of the Supreme Court, I'm a musician who is abusing this small label. This guy, if you go into the Instagram, especially the main guy, posts caviar and moe and expensive wines all day.
I checked it. I was
It's
shocked.
insane.
Yeah,
I'm
I was
a working
shocked.
class musician who really does this out of pocket, lives this 100%. And this guy who's super rich does not work as a musician. None of them work as a musician. That's the great thing. A lot of them, it's a side gig for them for fun and for status. And they portray me as the perpetrator. It's insane.
Wow.
And you sit there in court, and they lie about you, and you cannot respond. And it's
Wow.
you just feel small.
Oh man.
But you know the thing is, they don't even look you in the eye. That's where you get the sense of control again, because they know. They look in the floor. I really believe deep inside they know they're pieces of shit.
Yeah.
Sorry for the language, but they're really scum, and they know it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You cannot act this way and not know you're wrong. I don't believe it. Unless you're a psychopath.
That's the thing. If you have psychotic behavior and you're
Maybe one of them. I am not a
you're
psychologist.
antisocial and then
But
it's a
weird. It's
bigger
weird.
problem.
Because why would you take this thing as so pure music and corrupt it with all this bad energy, It's
Yeah.
this music is what makes us happy, what gives us joy. We dedicate our lives to it. And then people come in and inject all this stuff that should not be there.
Yeah.
That's one thing.
Because I think, we see a lot of predators in our business. And, man, it's a lot of them are in it because they want to be a part of something that they just don't have the skill, they don't have the focus, but they are dreaming to be a part of it. I remember that, I'll never forget it, that I was called by this, it was such a bizarre situation. I was called by this dude that wanted to rehearse and play songs. I think it was 8 or 9 years ago. And I was like, yeah, sure, I will come and play. And this guy was a dentist. He's still a dentist. And we went to his house and I was like, okay, let's play. And he wanted to play some songs. And I'm playing. It's this guy plays guitar and his son was playing drums. It was just a very amateur, and I was like, okay, well, I'll do it if you pay me $75 a rehearsal. Sure. It was yeah, sure. And he was sitting with me and I was gigging almost every day during that time. And I was telling him, yeah, I just came back from a gig. I'm tired and I'm this and I'm going to go to a gig afterwards and this. And he just looked at me and he said, man, I would never want to live like this, And then I look at him. Then I look at him and I'm like, you just call me because you want to play music. You're paying me to play with you. There is a part of you that wants that, but you don't actually want to take the leap and actually become that because it's a huge fucking risk.
It is.
And no one promises you anything. You were saying about the fact that I was poor, man, money for food, and I was just struggling, but you kept on going because it's bigger than you. It's stronger than you. And when people like this, I'm not talking about the dentist, I'm talking about this Fred, whatever his name is, that for them, they just want to be a part of something, but they don't want to actually pay the price for it.
It's easier, the way I see it, it was much easier, and the way I feel I was used, because he didn't do the production. I did all the production, but his name was on it. He gets to post on social media. I produced this. Nobody knew what happened in the studio if I would never speak up. And it's and I have to tell you, like, I know people who work with the biggest producers in the world, and a lot of them, ghost production is a very real thing.
Yeah, yeah. It's amazing that you say that, because I got a chance, when you talk about ghost production, I got a chance to sit with a close friend. He's like in the top 10 now of Organic House, and he was talking with me exactly about that. There was a track that came out, and this guy, I don't want to mention names, but like, he was basically saying that he's taking pictures with, like, you know, in studios with, like, you know, these big SSL, like big like mixers, and, like, you know, like showing how much he knows and stuff, but he just hires ghost producers and he takes all the credit.
Yes.
And it's, for me, as someone who's like a do-it-yourself, like write all the arrangements, go to the studio, conduct all that stuff, if I see someone from my industry that is like, yeah, you know, I wrote all these arrangements and stuff, and then I realize that someone else wrote it, someone else did all this labor and all this, like, like this knowledge and skill, and you take the credit for it. This is dark, man.
But it's very, I think, especially in social media era, it's so prevalent. It's everywhere. But on the other hand, there's still a lot of people who do amazing work and do it properly, or hire people and give them credits. I mean, it's a weird thing. Everybody wants to be now to show that they do everything themselves, and it creates the industry is so weird when you know it's like a sausage factory when you see how it actually works in the behind. It's
how it's being made. Yeah,
it's very weird.
Speaking of sausage, how the sausage is made, I'm curious to hear. Well, that was a very traumatic story, but, like, let's say more as what was one of the worst experiences you had? Not necessarily the legal and all that stuff, but really on the spot, like, musically working with people. Yeah.
Honestly, I'm unfortunate to not have a lot of band gigs. One thing I can say, and not say names, I've done a tour with this musician, and I was just beginning my way, and I was supposed to have provided gear every day, but then every venue we showed up, suddenly there was no backline for the keyboards for some reason, and then I have to wait like 10 minutes before the gig to see what I'm working with. And then I also got paid half what it was. After the whole tour, I got paid half of what promised.
Oh my gosh.
And but that's not. But I'm thinking the worst. Okay, I had this performance in a nice venue with this guy I liked and his band, and again supposed to be backline provided. And I come to the gig, and first of all, there was supposed to be 2 keyboard players and a bass player. The bass player did not arrive, and it's a gig and a festival kind of a lot of poor musicians. By that time, I know how to play a little bit, but I get this keyboard from the 90s that's completely digital and weird with menus, like no knobs. You have to figure it out, everything. And I'm not a bass player. Now I can play pretty like on synths and stuff, but back then less. And also, I was studied everything for that gig, like the key parts, not the bass. So, and these are kind of arranged songs. And I just try to figure out the sounds, which all sound terrible, and the bass lines. And who walks while I was doing my sound? Mono Neon. And he looks at me like, oh, you know, that was such a weird thing. And so the gig was not as bad, but I just felt a bit humiliated at that point, you know?
Like you want to hide.
It's just like, yourself. What am I doing here, you know? Yeah. What am I doing here? But I gotta tell you, even though I for some reason, bad stuff, even if it happened, doesn't stick to me that much, gigs, because I see everything as an experience to get better.
Yeah.
I had some studio gigs. I took stuff that was way over my head that I tried to do, and then you lose the clients. Like they're never gonna call you again. I don't even send the invoice because I feel so embarrassed. But I think these are also important. I don't know. I don't see it. I don't have horrible gigs. Like these are things I learned from.
Like you're talking about, like way over your head in the sense of like.
I'll give you an example. Like I do a lot of. I'm good at reconstructing stuff, productions, and it can be completely analog and hire musicians to create something, or I can really program synth or resample myself and make it sound like a specific record. I've done it for like ads or just for myself and stuff. And this guy, I was kind of getting known for doing these for hip hop beats, and this guy asked me to do it, and he sent me this thing that was completely orchestrated, like a big orchestra, and I had some plugins, but I knew there's no way, especially back then, I can mix it, record it, make it sound like a real orchestra. And he wanted something pretty accurate, and it was just a terrible. I never asked for the money, and I know he works with a lot of my friends, but he never called me again, and I don't blame him, like just to reconstruct the sound. I'm not even talking to transcribe all the parts of a huge orchestra was over my head. But again, I really believe in making mistakes and trial and error. So.
Yeah, exactly. It stays with you, and you learn
I know
from
some
it.
musicians with horrible stories. I don't have those.
Yeah,
luckily.
we just had a very horrible story here.
I'm losing that episode, but I'm lucky enough to not have really that kind of stuff.
And what is one of the best experiences you had? That you can remember.
I mean, it's weird. It's not a single thing, but getting appreciated by the producers I grew up listening to or musicians who I really look up to, and getting actually acknowledged and know that they're your fans, that's worth more than anything. Just the fact that people who you really appreciate their taste and come up to you and they're your fans, that's really humbling to me. Or hearing your music over like a huge crowd, it's just very humbling. But at the same time, I always tell myself, you're only as good as your last record. You need to be worried about the next thing you make,
Yeah.
But it feels good to know people love your music. It's just the best feeling in the world to me. Although, I will say this, and I think you could, more than that, the best thing in the world is when you completely improvise, even when you play solo, and you just flow with ideas. Like even at your house. Like I used to have migraines, and even with a migraine, if I'd sit and play, I would not even feel it because the being in a moment feels so good.
Yeah, you used to have migraines, so you don't have it anymore.
It was a lot from my back, and now I do yoga for years, twice a week at least, and I really try to live healthy, especially when you sit 8 hours a day.
Yeah,
when you play all day, you really need to take care of your physicals, kind of.
Yeah.
So now I barely have them, but I used to have them all the time.
And this is like an important question that I'm really curious about. Let's say you have the chance to sit with Noam from 10 years ago and 10, 12, 13 years ago, it doesn't matter. Noam was just starting really in the business. With all the knowledge that you have now and all the expertise and experience that you have now, what would you actually tell that Noam?
That's a problematic question because I told you, I'm glad I made all these mistakes to learn from.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing would be the legal thing. Never sue in Norway. But practically is really trust your gut. Don't be afraid to make mistakes and just go with the flow because you never know how it's going to work out. You never do. You really, like you say about even the streaming and gatekeeping, it changes so fast. If you're trying to get caught up with the trends and what's going on, you're never going to be able to develop your own voice. Trust your gut. Take your time. You're not in a hurry. Although it's that's the thing when we were young. The reason I think one of the reasons I stopped is because I was not as good. I just started being serious. And I was told if by the age of 17, 18, you're not good, you're never going to be a professional. Forget about it. And today I think it's the dumbest thing.
No, it's super dumb.
Music is growth and it's, I might not be as technical as the Instagram guys, but I can get pretty technical if I practice every day. If you just don't try to improve on a day-to-day. Just let it go, and 5 years later, you're going to be better than you ever imagined. Just trust your instinct.
I mean, if you're trying to see progress every day, that's insane. That's like, I mean, if I think about like now I'm working on this solo piano record, and I have some challenging pieces that I need to go through and stuff, but I know that the recording is going to be at the end of January, beginning February, and then I'm like, I need to set the time for that to be able to have daily practice, but I don't have like daily expectations. The only expectation that I have is to practice, instead of like, I have to make sure that this bar sounds like perfect, and it doesn't work this way.
I think consistency is king. If you do it every day, you're going to get better. You might not, again, if you want to play as fast as Oscar Peterson, it might not happen. Not everybody can. It's more. That's why I also think is that when you're young, you don't understand it. And I think that's why I'm so appreciative I got to create music when I'm older and really get serious, because a lot of musicians I really look up to, Donald Byrd, a lot of these people who are insanely technical, or Horace Silver, who could, when he was young, was very technical. But if you look at his more mature records, he really focused on having his own voice. And I think I still have technical musicians, but having your own voice is the most valuable thing you can do. And you can have your own voice and work on technique. But you should not compete. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. And it's also, that's the thing, that your own voice is what it is really that differentiates you from the rest in that sense. Because there's only one person like you know? And can you
100%.
imagine that, like, you would try to talk like someone else and put like your face, like go through plastic surgery. And like, this is what happens a lot of times with, I see it a lot in jazz. I just had this conversation like yesterday with a friend, a great trombone player. And he was just like saying, I was saying, like, I went to see a session and they were playing, and, you know, I listened to it, and they're playing a blues or something, and they all just played the same phrases, like different instruments, you know, trumpet, guitar, piano, bass. They're all playing the same language. And I was like, there is no personality there. There is no like actual, what is your message? And more than that, maybe I'm hating now. Okay, whatever, you know, cancel me. But it's more like the type of language is not connected to who you are.
That's 100% it is.
So it's like, you're not a person that is, let's say, African American, that is experiencing segregation and systemic racism in the year, between the years 50s and 60s, like in 1950, 1960, and you just played a bunch of like big band gigs, and you just want to go and like let it all out and just play with your community. What you are playing is, you're imitating records that experience and like, let's say, encapsulated that kind of feeling. And now this is what you're doing. But who are you?
It's an interesting thing, because the way I know music, I did not really study professionally. And that's why I'm kind of happy I didn't go to conservatory. I just listen to music and I study by ear a lot. But at the same time, learning language is important, because we're dealing with art forms that exist for a long time before us, has a complete, like, really culture around them, musical heritage. That's good to acknowledge. But like you said, it's not the life you lived. And I also think it's a lot of time you can hear the disconnect. And I used to work at Pension Homeland. It used to be weekly conservatory gigs.
Yeah.
So I used to listen. And suddenly all the saxophone players, a lot of them play these kind of Coltrane like super runs. And I'm thinking, yeah, Coltrane played runs. But if you listen to Coltrane knew blues. He knew country. He had soulfulness. He had like every time now the Instagram showed me, learn how to play like McCoy. And I see these people who have the same voicing, the same runs. McCoy never plays like this on any records. Yeah, he has these characteristics, but he has his personal touch, and he has extremely rich language. It's above these two voicings that everybody. It's just weird when you, I guess, because YouTube tutorials, like then now it's what sells, and you need to, commodify and make everything into palatable kind of thing you can explain easily. But these are people who lived entire lives and developed this. You cannot just imitate it and expect. And even if you imitate, and there are people who imitate Errol Garner perfectly, but you're not Errol Garner.
No. But that's the thing.
You're an impersonator.
What would be that Errol Garner part of yourself that does it, and that's really a lot of introspection in that sense, like really not necessarily playing the stride piano and the type of voicings with the octaves and stuff. I'm not talking about that. It's like, read about him, see what he ate, what he wore, why did he feel that he needs to do this, and then you realize, like, what would Errol Garner do now with
probably make trap.
Could be. Could be.
I don't know. But if I'm being serious, I it's crazy, because I transcribe more than anyone I know. I do a lot, but I don't really let it go inside my playing as much. For me, it's more like, because I've never studied music like that, I really like to kind of understand and learn pattern, learn ideas, kind of learn the language in a different way. But at the same time, that's kind of a Bill Evans quote that I really like. Practicing is a very intellectual thing. Playing should be strictly emotional. And I really connect to it, because when you study, I think it's good to learn language, it's good to learn technique, but you should also know how to connect to yourself. And I think it goes beyond music. Like, as a person, you should really, I really believe there's a connection. If you know yourself as a person, you're going to know yourself as a musician. Yeah. You need to actually live life, have experiences, have thoughts, interact with people. Yeah. It's kind of thing where I think is really important. And like you said, you can sound like somebody else, but it's not your life, it's not your sound. Yeah. So it will never be authentic.
Well, I gotta tell this little anecdote about, like, finding your own voice and stuff. When in 2012 it was or something like that. 2012, 2011. I was like, I said, okay, I'm gonna just send my music to Brad Meldau and see like what happens. You know, I sent like a link. I think it was like SoundCloud or something, or back then, and I didn't hear anything for months. And all of a sudden, I get like an email back from his agent, like, this is from Brad, and he was like, I like the music. It's very strong. Maybe we can meet one day. You know, I was like, oh my God, I can actually meet him and this and that. Fast forward, he's here in Amsterdam, playing in the Concertgebouw. If you remember the date, 4th of November 2013. And and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go and see the show. And I'm like, I'm communicating with this agent. It's like super impersonal, all that. Finally, I go to the concert, and he played solo piano, and afterwards I was like, hey Brad, like, you know, I'm Avishai, we spoke. He's like, oh, hey man, what's up, and this and that. I'm sorry I didn't get back to you. I'm gonna send you an email, we're gonna meet up. Finally we got a chance to meet up, because he lives in Amsterdam,
I've heard.
with his family. So I got a chance to sit at the piano with him. One of the times, you know, I got more chances, but it was like, that was the first time. And when we sat at the piano, he played me a bunch of like compositions that were never out, you know? And I was obsessed at that moment with him. I was transcribing him, and I was trying to sound like him. I had like the book of Elegiac Cycle, and I was like transcribing all these like solos and stuff. And what he said is, you got to write all your ideas out, like really write them out. And I was like, what do you mean? He said, you're an improvising musician. It's like almost like writing a journal, in that sense, that you crystallize your ideas. And then when you come to the stage, you're emotional about it. Like what you said, you know, when you practice, it's like laboratory, but when you play, it's making love, you know? And when he said that, everything just made sense. Because when he was playing his like little, these like short compositions, it was him. All these small seconds, like, you know, the change of hands and all that stuff. And after that, it took me years to implement it, because I was like, oh my God, what do I need to do? I need to still study Bach, I need to do this, and do this, and Mozart, and I need to study this meter and this meter. And now that I'm so focused on composition, I understand completely what he meant, in the sense of finding my own voice comes from my own stuff.
Yeah, 100%.
That like writing.
I think writing is a personal thing, because I don't write. I know how to
not right, but I'm saying like, you actually compose a lot. That's if you.
But I don't. I record it. I can write.
But it doesn't matter.
You're talking about like actually like composed music. Yeah.
I'm talking about composing music.
Yeah.
Like you do. You have thousands of hours if you think.
Yeah. Oh no, I make a lot.
But that's what I mean.
Yeah.
And that crystallizes your idea. It doesn't have to be in
no,
notes.
100%.
It doesn't have to be in notes. It's just that the notes allow for, let's say, allows just to keep the space for me, at least in the head, so I can write it and I just like it's out of me. But what happens is that I see that these ideas become like clearer and clearer and clearer. And then what happens eventually is that you get your own sound. Because when Brad is playing, it's like, this is Brad Meldau.
100%. I think it's both. What's beautiful about it, what I think is why it's so important to consistency and not really... Some people would say as a sport, like if you look at like a sport, setting goals and technical goals and stuff is good. But I think what's good about consistency, it goes both into your mind, but also into your muscle memory.
Yeah.
And if you practice both of these,
you're
going to sound like yourself eventually.
I think I have to interject that the whole technical goals is one. It's so dumb, to be honest. Like in the sense of, what I mean dumb is that no one cares how clean you play certain scales and stuff. It has to have a musical component in it.
I think if your voice is dirty, then you should. Like it's like I've seen this very very Harris clip where you ask a student to do an arpeggio, and the student does perfect classical. Like it's not how you play an arpeggio. Like he slams his body into it, and that's for him. That's the emotion Barry Harris has. Now I'm saying it's not. Of course, Barry Harris, the person who's like, this is the way you play this style, and he, you know, he's a legend and he has all the merit to say it. But I'm just saying there's no one way to play. And if you listen to a lot of amazing players, they're not technical as much as you think. Because Miles Davis had an technique. Like the essence of being technical is being able to project your ideas in the best form possible. It's not about playing fast. It's not about it's not that.
Yeah.
So some people can play dirty. Some people can play Bobby Timmons. If you play like Oscar Peterson, it would not sound as like it does. It's just a thing. You need to find your own way of playing.
Yeah.
And that's why I've heard about. Why I think it's the other side of the conservatory. You meet a lot of people, you learn a lot. But also what I've heard here specifically, they tell you how to play this style of music. Yeah. Which if you actually listen to this music, there's no way of playing it because a million people play differently in 48.
Yeah.
There's not like every city had a different style and every group in that city had so there's no one way to.
It's more really like about what would be the sound of it now. You gotta get with the times. It can't. It's I don't know. I guess that's why I was always having issues with the conservatory here, and I was like a rebel. Like in the sense of.
I hear it from a lot of people who don't play this kind of music or don't necessarily.
I came from New York and I came with all this crazy music and I was like, you got to get your head out of New York. No one plays this music here. While my friends would just play in the BIM house the night after,
Yeah.
I was like, what is that? What do you mean? And then I would come and I played Bud Powell, like Celia, I remember just like transcribing every single note.
I know
and the left hand, everything, And then I come to the lesson, it's like, it's like, it's outdated. I'm like, so what do you want? What are we doing here?
Who do they want you to play like?
Yeah, exactly. What do you want it to sound like?
But I also think it's kind of dumb because if you hear the music in a certain way in your head, forcing you to play otherwise, not going to make you better. It's good to teach your language, but to force you to play in a certain way is just, I don't know. On the other hand, I will say, if you look at modern jazz, a lot of people also play the same patterns, same kind of harmonies. So I think no matter what you do, and it's a weird thing that happened to me because I come from being a music lover. I know a lot of musicians I learned over the age who don't listen to music. And for me, that's kind of weird.
That's true.
How it's like being a chef who doesn't like food, who doesn't eat for fun.
But I think it's because, I don't listen to a lot of music in that sense. Actually, I listen much more to podcasts and comedy. But it's because when I listen to music, I listen so much to it that it's work.
No, I get it.
I have hundreds of thousands of hours of just being so immersed in things.
That's listening, trying to understand. But what about putting some reggae when you're cooking? Or I don't know, you're walking in the street listening to whatever. It doesn't have to be.
I enjoyed putting your record when I'm cooking and stuff.
I'm not saying you have to even listen to a lot of different stuff. But I'm thinking and again, that's maybe my perspective. I'm a keyboard player, but I'm a producer. Yeah. For me, I consume so much different music because I think it expands my idea. It's like I just think it's food. I like different kitchens, and you have to learn if you want to learn European French cuisine or whatever. Yeah. But then you need to travel, and you can travel and learn different flavors of the world and how they connect. But again, you can be a person who only does one kind of music and you only listen to that. That's cool as well. But I think in general, all of us can benefit from opening our mind. But again, I have my blind spots. I don't know Andalusian music or North African music as much as you do. Yeah. We all have our blind spots. You probably listen to thousands of hours of that.
Thousands, But
in general, I think it's good to be curious. And because I have friends who don't, but also at some point, and they're performing with huge artists, at some point they don't enjoy it anymore. It's like we talked about, they become an accountant. Yeah, accountant that plays music.
It's work.
And I think it's just a waste because you work your entire life to be in a position where you don't enjoy it anymore.
But I think in that moment, you need versatility. You need to diversify what you're doing in your life. I remember when I was 20, I was like, I am going to practice 8 hours a day and this is going to fulfill my life. And then you reach your 30s and you're like, I also want to go and see people and be with my girlfriend. I want to have a family and and then you realize I remember that I was in the conservatory practicing 9 hours a day, and then I would go to a rehearsal and sound like shit because I sound like a practice room. So you need experiences to fill in the music. That's why you said also everything that happened to me had a direct effect on the music because it reflects what happens. I mean, last thing I just want to say, I remember in New York, for instance, which was there were most, let's say, powerful, I don't want to say powerful musical experiences, but the most that I learned about music was there because I met like incredible musicians, Grammy winners and all that stuff. But also, when we would play, we would not think about music. We would think about like the subway or this homeless guy that we would see. Or like the way the music was approached was almost an extension of our life. That was reflective of what we're experiencing as people and not what we're experiencing as craftsmen, you know, of just like, I can play this chord, I can play this scale, I know all the chords. It's more like, what is the emotion? What is the story that I want to express? And I feel that this still needs to be like, cherished.
And how do you think it's here? When you came here, how did you experience here differently? Was it really more scientific, like we played this genre, so we played
Much
like
more.
this? Yeah?
Much more like, but I think it's also the Dutch culture. If you think about it, Dutch culture is very much like, they have this word kader, so it's all like, we do this now, and then we do this, and then the next happens, and then we do this, and it's like, it's very like, we do things by steps, and we do them correctly, because this is how things should be, do normal.
Do normal.
Yeah, do normal.
I will say one thing on the business side, why it's good, and I wouldn't say I suffer from it, but if you play jazz, like now modern jazz, contemporary jazz is supposed to be, and if you make hip-hop beats in a way, then it's easy to put you also in front of these crowds. This guy makes it like this, and this.
Yeah.
Like I would say I'm too hip-hop for the jazz crowds. I'm too hip-hop, I'm too jazz for the funk crowd. Like I'm in between.
Yeah.
So in that sense, the music scene is also built, not in New York, I'm not talking musicians, but the industry is like, you need to be a certain type of person for each.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I think as musicians, we should be in the place that experience the moment and projects what we, not go by these rules.
Yeah. But it's also like, there's just too much, man. There's too much music. It's like, 35,000 tracks are being uploaded per day?
No, way more. I think it was
per day.
I think it was 60 like a few years ago. Now it's probably over 100
per day.
Yeah, because now you have, and that was before AI. So now with AI, because what's weird?
So insane.
We have not even talked about it. I have friends who are musicians actually, and they still upload AI generated stuff.
Dude, this is like 500 million tracks a year.
It's but if you look it up, I think it's a minuscule percentage who make more than like $50 a month from streaming. It's like only a very it's not many people will make it. But also, but still, we both know also musicians who are doing well.
Wow.
And have good careers.
Well, it's also that thing of like a lot of, what is it, like 80% of Spotify artists have less than 50 listeners a week, a month, so it's like, if you're in the 10,000 already, you're like in a different place. Man, I want to thank you.
Thank you
for coming here and sharing your crazy story and also sharing all your knowledge and talking about anything. Would you like to plug anything?
Not necessarily. Just listen to music you love. Be nice to people, and
you can talk here.
Oh, so this camera. Just be nice to everyone. And if you like an artist, try to support him directly. Go to shows, buy his stuff. Even you'd be surprised how many people support, like on Bandcamp, buy digital. They don't need to. They can stream it, but they still do it because it helps the artist. Like you would not know as a fan how much it helps the artist to sustain his career. It's crazy.
Absolutely. Soul Supreme, Nomophile, again, thank you so much for doing this. And I would like to also thank our producer that has been sitting here silently for 5 hours. Joao MB Costa, that made this whole possible, like the beautiful studio and the setup of the cameras. Thank you all for joining us. Please follow, like, and subscribe. We have so much more content coming and guests and everything, and we would love to see you in the gig or the production or the studio. So till next time.